Hey everyone, welcome to Reality TV News Update, the place where we bring you the latest updates, fun moments, and behind the scenes stories you won't want to miss. The most recent jury member also responds to Vince's refusal to block Morgan. House guest Keanu Soto from Evicted Big Brother Season 27 gives a percentage of what he thinks Vince told him was true. Keanu claims that he and Rachel, his foe, are still at odds in the jury house. Naturally, they are. Keanu also reveals his one big regret from the game. The Dungeon Master's game is finally over. Keanu Soto was put on the Big Brother chopping block 8 different times this season. And the 8th time was the final time, as Keanu was finally evicted from the house on day 77 of the game. Keanu had once again put his faith in Vince Panaro, not realizing that Vince was secretly stringing him along the entire time. While Keanu mistakenly believed Vince would finally take a shot at Flirtman's partner Morgan Pope, the head of household took the shot at Keanu instead. After Keanu was nominated by Vince and then failed to win the veto, his fate was sealed. We caught up with the 5th place finisher to gather his thoughts on Vince now, find out his current frenemy status with Rachel Riley, and see how he thinks he would have done with the jury had he made it to the end. So without further ado, we believe he has a prompt. Entertainment Weekly. You kept telling Vince he needed to put Morgan on the block if he had any hopes of winning this game. Why do you think he ultimately chose not to do that? Keanu Soto. Let's check it out. Why did he choose not to put Morgan on the block? Well, obviously, I'm sure you guys can see that their connection is very strong as a duo there. But I guess this question could have different answers depending on what phase of the game that we're in. But if you are referring particularly to the late game there, from my understanding, she made a really good argument as to why I was the frontrunner to win, particularly because of my underdog story. So I believe that's ultimately why he chose to put me up over her on the HOH that I went home. You told Vince that all he ever did was lie to you, and all you did was show him grace. Do you blame yourself for giving him so many chances? Do I blame myself for giving him so many chances? Well, yeah, I have to take extreme ownership over that. But to be honest, that's just my nature, So a lot of the tears that he cried may or may not have been fake. It's obviously gonna hurt to go back and watch and see if they were. I always equated it to basically chess, but with humans, right? And whenever there's a human element, there's going to be mess-ups and this and that. And I can't blame someone for having those human slip-ups or feeling like, let's say, for example, during the Adrian vote where he kept telling me he was going to vote for him, he decided not to, and then he cried about it afterwards, saying he felt like a slimy weasel, or I can't remember exactly what words he used. But I gave him a hug and dude, it's okay. That's gonna happen. You had a human moment. That's okay. Just don't let it happen again. I've always maintained that our relationship resembles that of a big brother and a little brother. I wouldn't get mad at my little brother for making constant mess-ups like that. That would be hypocritical of me because I've done that so many times in my life. Therefore, I would not alter that in any way. How much of what Vince said and did in the house do you think was genuine? I have various theories about how many things he did that were genuine. If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say about 90% of the things he did were probably not genuine when it came to me. So that's gonna hurt to go back and watch. But like I said, we're playing a game, and I always said throughout the season that I felt like I was very good at separating personal from game. So I'm doing my best right now to do the same thing. You and your frenemy Rachel had one of the most complex relationships in the house. What's your take now on Rachel? And what do you think her take on you is? The frenemies. She hated that alliance name, and I like to think it's pretty good because it encompassed our relationship, I felt like. But I guess we'll find out. My relationship with Rachel, I hate to say this, but a lot of our arguments were pretty one-sided, and I hope it comes across that way on camera, because she's like, "Oh, you're always yelling at me." And I'm like, "I am very relaxed right now. What are you talking about?" And that hasn't stopped here in the jury house. We are picking up right where we left off. But I said that we have a big sister, little brother kind of relationship, and it really feels like that. I'm fortunate enough to have 7 other siblings, and believe it or not, I never fought with any of them. So to feel like I have one now that I do fight with, it's kind of refreshing. I got it 33 years later. If you had made it to the final two, how do you think you would have fared in the jury against the players who were still in the house? I believe that Morgan was the only remaining player who could have competed with me in the final two games. Because if you look at how we played the game, I felt like it was very inverted. At the beginning of the game, I had my back up against the wall and had to win to stay in the game. And then around the prizes and punishments, when I got the butler punishment, that was really at the point where I was able to start developing more of my social game and relying more on that to a point where I even was able to be saved in a tie vote once I finally touched the block, which I imagine a lot of people did not think that would happen. And then Morgan's game. She was very social at the beginning, and then showing her competitive prowess a lot towards the end there. So I feel like she would have given me much more of a run for my money than anybody else. However, in this particular question, I'm sitting in the final two, right? Which means if I'm sitting in the final two, that means that I won the last three competitions that I was able to win, I imagine. And in that case, I would have had double-digit wins, which, if I'm not mistaken, has not been done in Big Brother history for a winner. 10 total competition wins. And that I feel like would have made my resume undeniable and would have given me the win. So I felt like I would have won against anybody in the house had I been sitting in the final two. Last but not least, what is your biggest personal or gaming regret from your time in the house? Well, I'm going to be honest. I did not think that the board, for lack of a better phrase, was going to develop so quickly. That is to say, I did not anticipate that a metaphorical line in the sand would be drawn there so quickly. So when Jimmy kind of called me out and then called me a liar, and I kind of admittedly lost my cool a little bit and said I was going to pick every player off one by one. I said that under the assumption that everyone that I was cool with at that time would not think I was talking about them. But lo and behold, to find out, everybody took that as a threat, literally. Even though I'm sure it was a great TV moment, I would say that losing my cool in that moment is probably one of my biggest regrets because it really hurt my social skills. Because I put a huge target on my back for the whole house, whereas I thought I would have had at least 5 or 6 people to kind of back me up. I ended up being very lonely in the first kind of 4 to 5 weeks there. I was all by myself. Therefore, if I could do it over again, I might have done it slightly differently.